Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off our presentation today on tree growth and juvenile wood formation. This is the first slide, so I want to warmly welcome you all and give you a quick overview. We'll be exploring how trees grow and how juvenile wood develops within that process. Over the next few slides, we'll cover the key stages of growth, what influences juvenile wood formation, and why it matters. So, let's get started and dive into this fascinating topic. Let's take a closer look at mature wood development. As trees grow, they go through different stages, starting with juvenile wood. This is the early phase, where the wood is still developing its structure and properties. Over time, as the tree matures, it transitions into mature wood. This mature phase is really important because it determines much of the wood's strength, stability, and overall quality. The timeline here shows how these stages are connected. Initial juvenile wood gradually gives way to mature wood as the tree ages. Understanding this progression helps us better appreciate why mature wood has the characteristics it does and how it impacts everything from timber quality to processing. So, in essence, the development from juvenile to mature wood is a crucial part of the overall growth process, and it has significant implications for the end use of the wood. Let's talk about juvenile wood. This is the type of wood that's formed by the vascular cambium, which is a layer of cells responsible for producing new xylem and phloem. Juvenile wood develops under the prolonged influence of the apical meristem, which is located in the live crown of the tree. You might also hear it called core wood or crown wood. An interesting point is that juvenile wood isn't just something that only appears in young trees. It actually forms throughout the entire life of the tree. So, even mature trees have juvenile wood in their structure. Now, contrast this with mature wood, which is formed by the vascular cambium in lower parts of the stem. In these areas, the influence of the live crown is much less, so the characteristics of the wood are different. It's important to note that the distinction between juvenile and mature wood is completely different from the difference between heartwood and sapwood. They are separate concepts that refer to different aspects of wood development and functionality. Understanding these differences helps us better appreciate the complexity of tree growth and the structural variations within the wood itself. Let's take a closer look at the different types of wood we're dealing with here. First, we have juvenile wood and mature wood. Juvenile wood is the early growth wood, which tends to have different properties compared to mature wood, which is more developed and stable. Then, on the other side, we have heartwood and sapwood. Sapwood is the outer, living part of the tree that conducts nutrients, while heartwood is the older, non-living central part that provides structural support. Now, when we compare these, it's important to understand that juvenile wood and mature wood can be found within the same tree, but they differ significantly in characteristics like density, strength, and appearance. Similarly, sapwood and heartwood are also distinct, with sapwood being active in nutrient transport and heartwood serving mainly structural functions. Looking at the combinations on this slide, sapwood versus juvenile wood, sapwood versus mature wood, heartwood versus juvenile wood, and heartwood versus mature wood. Each comparison helps us understand how these different zones and developmental stages influence the wood's properties. This is crucial because the overall quality and application of wood depend greatly on these internal differences. So, connecting this to our broader theme, recognizing these distinctions allows us to better select and utilize wood based on specific needs, whether for structural applications, aesthetic purposes, or durability. Understanding these relationships helps us make more informed decisions in wood processing and utilization. Let's delve into the physiology of juvenile wood formation, as explained by Jossa. When we talk about juvenile wood, we're referring to the wood produced early in a tree's life, which has distinct characteristics from mature wood. Understanding how this wood forms is crucial, because it affects the overall quality and properties of the timber. The key point here is that juvenile wood formation is driven by the biological processes within the cambium, the layer of cells responsible for producing new xylem and phloem. During this phase, the cambium cells are highly active, and the environmental conditions, like temperature and water availability, also influence how they develop. This results in juvenile wood having different cell structures, often with smaller, less thick cell walls and different fiber arrangements, compared to mature wood. These differences impact properties like density, strength, and how the wood reacts to processing. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding the physiology behind juvenile wood helps us better predict and manage wood quality for various applications. So, in essence, the formation of juvenile wood is a complex, biologically driven process that has significant implications for forestry and wood utilization. Let's talk about juvenile wood and its characteristics and properties. When we examine the anatomy, we notice that juvenile wood tends to have wider growth rings compared to mature wood. The cell walls are thinner, which affects the overall strength and density. Additionally, there's less latewood, which is the denser, darker part of the growth ring, and the tracheids, those are the longitudinal water-conducting cells, are shorter. Another notable feature is the presence of more spiral grain, which can influence how the wood behaves under stress. Moving on to ultrastructure, juvenile wood has a larger S2 layer in the cell wall, known as estus irregular 4E9, which also impacts its properties. Chemically, juvenile wood contains more lignin but less cellulose, and its hemicellulose's composition differs from mature wood. These chemical differences are quite significant because they influence how the wood reacts in various applications. Now, considering the properties, juvenile wood generally has a lower density, which makes it lighter but also less strong. It exhibits lower mechanical strengths and tends to undergo greater longitudinal shrinkage as it dries. When it comes to paper production, juvenile wood tends to produce paper with higher burst and tensile strengths, meaning it resists tearing and breaking under tension better. However, its tear strength is lower, making it more susceptible to tearing once the paper is damaged. Understanding these differences is crucial because juvenile wood's unique traits influence how we can best utilize it in different products and industries. Now, let's take a closer look at slide 7, which focuses on the longitudinal tracheid length in second growth Douglas fir at breast height. As you can see, this data comes from Forintech, and it helps us understand some important structural characteristics of the wood. The length of these tracheids is crucial because it directly influences the wood's strength, stiffness, and how well it performs in various applications. Longer tracheids typically mean better bonding and stronger wood, which is essential for structural uses. In second growth Douglas fir, measuring these tracheid lengths gives us insight into how the wood develops after the initial growth phase. It also helps us compare different growth conditions or silvicultural practices. Overall, understanding these microscopic features allows us to better predict the performance and quality of the wood, tying back to our broader theme of optimizing forest management and wood utilization. Let's take a closer look at juvenile and mature wood ring profiles, as shown here. These profiles are really insightful because they help us understand the growth history and the characteristics of the wood. Juvenile wood, which forms early in the tree's life, typically has different ring patterns compared to mature wood. For example, juvenile wood often shows wider growth rings and less organized cell structures, which can influence the wood's strength and workability. On the other hand, mature wood, developed later in the tree's life, usually displays tighter, more consistent rings with better defined cell organization. Recognizing these differences is important because they affect how we use the wood in various applications, from construction to furniture making. By examining these ring profiles, we can also gain clues about the tree's growth conditions and overall health. This is especially relevant as we consider wood quality and the sustainability of our forestry practices. So, understanding these profiles helps us make more informed decisions about wood utilization and management, connecting directly to our broader goal of sustainable and efficient wood use. Let's take a closer look at the microfibril angle, which is often abbreviated as MWA. As Jossa points out, this angle plays a crucial role in determining the properties of wood fibers. Essentially, it refers to the angle between the cellulose microfibrils and the longitudinal axis of the cell. A smaller microfibril angle generally means the fibers are more aligned with the tree's trunk, which translates to stiffer and stronger wood. Conversely, a larger angle indicates a more oblique arrangement, leading to more flexible but less stiff wood. Understanding this angle helps us grasp how trees adapt their cell structure to balance strength and flexibility, which is vital for their growth and mechanical stability. So, in the context of our overall theme, the microfibril angle gives us insight into the microscopic architecture that influences the macroscopic properties of wood. It's a key factor in selecting and utilizing wood for various purposes, from construction to paper production. So let's take a closer look at Mansfield. Mansfield is a prime example of how innovative practices can really transform an organization. It highlights the importance of adapting to change and embracing new strategies to stay competitive. What stands out about Mansfield is their focus on continuous improvement and their ability to foster a culture of learning. This aligns perfectly with our overall theme today, which is about leveraging change to drive growth. By examining Mansfield's approach, we can see practical ways to implement similar strategies in our own work. It's all about being proactive, open to new ideas, and committed to ongoing development. Let's take a closer look at the differences between juvenile wood and mature wood. Starting with density, juvenile wood has a density of about 427 kilograms per cubic meter, whereas mature wood is denser at around 489 kilograms per cubic meter. This means that as the tree ages, its wood generally becomes stronger and more compact. Looking at fiber length, juvenile wood fibers are shorter, averaging 2.98 millimeters, compared to 4.28 millimeters in mature wood. Longer fibers in mature wood contribute to better strength and durability, which is crucial for many applications. Cell wall thickness also increases with maturity, from about 3.88 micrometers in juvenile wood to 8.04 micrometers in mature wood. Thicker cell walls tend to enhance the wood's structural properties. Now, the Estuobar angle, which relates to fiber curl or microfibril angle, is much higher in juvenile wood at 55 degrees, compared to just 20 degrees in mature wood. A lower angle in mature wood indicates greater stiffness and less tendency to warp. In terms of shrinkage, juvenile wood exhibits about 0.9% longitudinal shrinkage, while mature wood shrinks less than 0.1%. Less shrinkage in mature wood means it maintains stability over time. When we look at strength, the modulus of rupture in juvenile wood is around 7,700 psi, but it increases significantly to 10,660 psi in mature wood, showing that mature wood can withstand much higher forces before breaking. Similarly, the modulus of elasticity, which measures stiffness, is 1.12 million psi in juvenile wood and goes up to 1.75 million psi in mature wood. Overall, these differences highlight that mature wood is generally stronger, stiffer, and more stable, which is why it's often preferred for structural applications. Understanding these properties helps us make better decisions about wood selection based on the specific needs of our projects. Let's talk about the transition from juvenile wood to mature wood. Now, some graphs might make you think this change happens abruptly, but that's not really the case. The transition is actually quite gradual. If you look at the right stem profile here, it clearly shows how this change occurs smoothly over time. This is important because understanding that the shift isn't sudden helps us better appreciate how wood properties evolve as the tree matures. It also connects to the overall theme of how biological development influences wood quality and characteristics. So, in essence, the transition is a steady process, not a quick switch, which has implications for how we manage and utilize different types of wood in various applications. Let's take a closer look at slide 13. Here, we see an example of juvenile wood, which is the wood from the first 20 years of a tree's growth. This juvenile section is marked on the ends of a 50-year-old Douglas fir log, making it visible on the lumber ends as well. This visual helps us understand how early growth rings can be identified in mature logs. Recognizing juvenile wood is important because it can influence the strength and stability of the final product. By understanding these distinct zones, we can better assess lumber quality and make more informed decisions in wood utilization. This ties back to our overall theme of understanding wood properties for more sustainable and efficient use of forest resources.